The moment Mira saw the stranded billionaire standing beside his broken-down Ferrari, 15 years of buried rage and heartbreak erupted through her veins. Alexander Harrington had shattered her family's life once before, and now he stood on her territory, oblivious to the destruction his family had left in their wake. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go! A single moment of recognition can shatter the carefully constructed walls between past and present. For Mira Donovan, a 26-year-old waitress struggling to keep her younger brother in college and their small apartment's rent paid, that moment came on an unseasonably warm October afternoon. For Alexander Harrington, a man whose name adorned the skyline and whose wealth insulated him from life's harsher realities, it was the instant a mechanical failure brought his carefully ordered world crashing into hers. She was just trying to survive another day. He was just another entitled rich man with a broken luxury car. But when their eyes met across that cracked sidewalk, the past they shared threatened to unravel everything they thought they knew about themselves and each other. This isn't a fairy tale. This is the story of how a Ferrari's blown transmission in a forgotten neighborhood exposed the fault lines of a decades-old betrayal and the price of ambition. The afternoon sun beat down on Roxbury Avenue, the kind of street that city development plans routinely forgot to mention. Mira moved quickly along the uneven sidewalk, her waitress uniform already feeling too warm under the unexpected October heat. The to-go coffee in her hand was for Mrs. Geller, the elderly woman who ran the small convenience store next door to Ruby's diner. She wouldn't make it back in time for her next shift if she didn't hurry. The sound stopped her. A string of muffled curses followed by the metallic clang of something expensive failing catastrophically. Around the corner, partially blocking the narrow street, sat a gleaming black Ferrari, its hood raised like a surrender flag. Tools lay scattered across the potholed asphalt, and beside them stood a man so out of place he might as well have descended from another planet. His suit alone probably cost more than 6 months of Mira's rent. Silver-streaked dark hair and an aristocratic profile completed the picture of privilege. He was speaking tersely into a phone, his back partially turned to her. "I don't care what meeting you have to reschedule. I need someone here now." The transmission's completely shot. Mira would have continued walking rich men and their problems held no interest for her. Something in his stance, the particular way he held his shoulders, triggered a memory so visceral she nearly dropped Murs Geller's coffee. She knew that posture, knew the exact cadence of frustration in that voice. Couldn't be, but it was. As if sensing her scrutiny, he turned, and for a moment the years fell away. Alexander Harrington. Not just any wealthy businessman, but the Alexander Harrington, CEO of Harrington Global, philanthropist, one of America's youngest billionaires. His face was on business magazines and charity gala programs, but to Mira he had once simply been Alex. The boy from the big house on the hill. The boy who had promised her the world and then disappeared without a trace 15 years ago. Their eyes locked across the broken pavement, and Mira saw the precise moment recognition dawned in his expression: confusion, disbelief, and then something darker flashing across features that had grown sharper with age but remained unmistakable. "Mira?" The phone lowered slowly from his ear. She should have kept walking. She should have pretended not to hear him, pretended not to recognize the man who had shattered her 16-year-old heart. Instead, she found herself moving toward him as if pulled by an invisible thread that 15 years hadn't managed to sever. "Car trouble, Alex?" she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Long way from Fifth Avenue, aren't you?" His eyes, still that same impossible blue, widened slightly. "I didn't expect. How are you here? You live around here?" The genuine astonishment in his voice ignited a flicker of anger in her chest. What had he expected? That she would somehow be living in a penthouse without his presence in her life? "Some of us never left," she replied, gesturing vaguely to the neighborhood around them. "Not all of us had the luxury of vanishing to reinvent ourselves." The barb landed. A muscle tightened in his jaw. "My driver took a shortcut to avoid traffic. Then this happened." He gestured to the Ferrari, an $800,000 paperweight on the broken street. "Transmission's gone. Apparently even Italian engineering has its limits." "Tough break," Mira said, taking a sip of Mrs. Geller's coffee. "Buy the woman another one." This moment required fortification. "Your people coming to rescue you?" "Eventually." His gaze hadn't left her face, studying her as if she were a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "You look good, Mira." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Save the pleasantries, Alex. We're well past that, don't you think?" For a moment, vulnerability cracked his polished exterior. "It's been a long time. 15 years, 2 months, and about 12 days. But who's counting?" Mira instantly regretted the precision of her answer. It revealed too much. Alex's phone buzzed insistently in his hand. He glanced at it, then silenced it without answering. "My team is caught in traffic. Won't be here for at least an hour." He looked around the neighborhood as if noticing it for the first time. The graffiti-tagged buildings. The small bodega with security bars on its windows. The curious onlookers beginning to gather at a distance, drawn by the incongruous luxury car. "I don't suppose there's somewhere nearby I could wait? Somewhere ... single quotes," he trailed off. "Somewhere befitting your station?" Mira finished for him. "Not really. Ruby's diner is around the corner. The coffee's decent, and they probably won't spit in it. At least not if you're with me. His eyebrow raised slightly. You work there? For the last 8 years. She didn't bother hiding the challenge in her voice. Let him judge her. Let him see what walking away had meant. Alex looked at his watch, a timepiece that probably cost more than her annual salary. Then back at the useless Ferrari. Decision made, he pulled a small leather case from inside his jacket, extracted a business card, and scribbled something on the back. For the car, he said, tucking the card beneath the windshield wiper. So they know it's mine when they arrive, as if a Ferrari in this neighborhood could belong to anyone else. Lead the way, he said. The walk to Ruby's was only a few hundred feet, but it might as well have been miles for the silence that stretched between. Mira was acutely aware of Alex's presence beside her, the subtle scent of his cologne, the soft sound of expensive leather shoes on concrete. The way people's eyes followed him. He moved like someone who had never doubted his place in the world. She pushed open the diner's door with more force than necessary, the bell jingling an angry announcement of their arrival. Inside, the afternoon lull meant only a handful of tables were occupied. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in an unflattering glow that somehow made Alex look even more out of place. Kathy, the other waitress on shift, nearly dropped a plate when she saw who had followed Mira inside. Take your pick, Mira told Alex, gesturing to the empty booths. I'll get you that coffee. She escaped to behind the counter, catching her breath as she poured a cup of coffee she knew cost less per pound than the shoe polish Alex probably used. This couldn't be happening. Alexander Harrington couldn't be sitting in Ruby's diner in her world, acting as if he had any right to look at her that way, with recognition, with regret. Is that how I think it is? Kathy whispered, sidling up next to her. Alexander Harrington. His car broke down outside, Mira replied, her voice flat. He's just waiting for his people to come fix it. You don't seem surprised to see him, Kathy observed, too perceptive by half. You know him? Stu. Mira picked up the coffee cup a lifetime ago. She made her way to the booth where Alex had settled, placing the coffee in front of him with professional detachment. Creams on the table. Sugar too, though I remember you took it black. Something flickered in his eyes at this evidence that she remembered anything about him at all. Still do, he confirmed, wrapping his hands around the mug but not drinking. Mira, can you sit for a moment? Please? The please surprised her. The Alexander Harrington she saw in business profiles and charity gala photographs didn't seem like a man who said please very often. I'm working, she replied automatically. He glanced around the nearly empty diner. I think they can spare you for 5 minutes. Reluctantly, she slid into the booth opposite him, maintaining as much distance as the small table allowed. Up close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the weariness beneath the wealth and power. 15 years had changed him too. I never expected to see you again, he said quietly. That was rather the point, wasn't it? She couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Leaving the way you did. Alex's fingers tightened around the coffee cup. It wasn't my choice, Mira. Spare me. It's ancient history. She started to rise, but his next words froze her in place. My father threatened your family. The words hung in the air between them. Impossible and yet ringing with a terrible truth that resonated with questions she'd carried for 15 years. What are you talking about? She whispered. Alex's gaze was unflinching. The summer everything changed. When I suddenly stopped coming to see you. When my letters stopped. When I supposedly went to Europe early for school. It was my father. He found out about us. Mira sank back into the booth, memories crashing over her like waves. The secret meetings. The promises whispered under starlight. The future they had planned, despite their different world, and then the sudden, unexplained silence that had nearly broken her. He said I had to cut all contact with you. Alex continued, his voice low and tight, that the Harringtons didn't associate with your kind. His words, not mine. I refused. So he showed me what he was capable of. What did he do? Mira asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Your father's contracting business. The one that suddenly lost all its major clients that fall. The one that went bankrupt within 6 months. That was my father. One phone call from Gerald Harrington, and your family's livelihood vanished. The coffee in Mira's stomach turned to acid. Her father's construction company had indeed collapsed that year. The year everything changed. The year they lost their home. The year her mother took a second job cleaning offices at night. The year her childhood ended. He said if I didn't stay away from you, he'd make sure your family didn't just lose their business, they'd lose everything. He'd see to it your father never worked in construction again, that your mother would be fired from the hospital, that you'd lose your scholarship. And you believed him. It wasn't a question. I knew him, Alex answered simply. I'd seen what he could do to people who crossed him. So yes, I disappeared. To protect you. Mira's hands trembled slightly on the table. My father drank himself to death over losing that business. My mother worked herself into an early grave trying to keep us afloat. And you became this. She gestured to his expensive suit, the trappings of his privilege. You took your place in the world your father made. Pain flashed across his face. It wasn't that simple. The diner's ancient ceiling fan spun lazily overhead, doing little to disperse the tension that had settled between them. Mira stared at Alex, trying to reconcile the polished billionaire before her with the boy who had once promised her the world under a blanket of stars. It wasn't that simple, he repeated, his voice softening. After I left, I fought my father every step of the way. I refused the Ivy League. I went to a state school instead. Studied engineering, not business like he wanted. He paused, tracing a finger along a crack in the laminate tabletop. I even tried to find you about 2 years later. Came back to the old neighborhood, but your family was gone. We lost the house, Mira said flatly. Couldn't keep up with the mortgage after Dad's business failed. Moved into a 2-bedroom apartment across town. Mom took a job at cleaning office buildings at night. I started working after school to help with bills. Guilt shadowed his features. I should have found a way to warn you. Would it have changed anything? She asked. The question hung between them, unanswerable. Alex reached for his coffee, took a sip, and grimaced slightly. It wasn't the gourmet brew he was used to, but he continued drinking it anyway. When did your father pass? 3 years after your father destroyed him. The words came out sharper than she intended. Car accident. Blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit. Mom followed 6 years later, heart attack at 53. Doctors said it was stress, but I think she just gave up. Worked herself into the ground trying to keep us afloat. Alex set down his cup, his expression haunted. I'm sorry, Mira. For all of it, she let out a hollow laugh. And that makes it better? That you're sorry? Look around you, Alex. This is my life. This is what became of all those dreams we had. I'm 31 years old, waiting tables at Ruby's, trying to keep my brother in college so he can have what I never got. You have a brother? Something like surprise flickered across his face. Tyler, he's 20, smart as hell. Scholarship to state, but it doesn't cover everything. A rare smile softened her features. He's going to be an architect. Already has an internship lined up for next summer. The bell above the diner door jingled as a customer entered, breaking the moment. Mira glanced over, then quickly stood. I need to get back to work. Alex reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. When do you finish? We need to talk, really talk. Please, she shouldn't care what he needed. She should tell him to get in his repaired Ferrari when it arrived and drive back to his perfect life, leaving her to hers. But 15 years of questions deserved answers, even if those answers could no longer change anything. 7, she said finally. I finish at 7. The next 3 hours crawled by with excruciating slowness. Mira moved through her shift on autopilot, taking orders, delivering food, making small talk with regulars, all while acutely aware of Alex's presence in the corner booth. He'd made several calls, his voice low and controlled, occasionally glancing her way when he thought she wasn't looking. Kathy had tried to pry information from her, eyes wide with curiosity. Seriously, how do you know him? He keeps watching you, old friend, Mira had replied curtly. Nothing important. At 6:30, a sleek black Escalade pulled up outside the diner. A man in a dark suit entered, spoke briefly with Alex, then left. Alex remained seated, nursing what must have been his 5th cup of coffee. Your ride's here, Mira said, approaching his table to collect empty plates from the booth behind him. You don't have to wait. I said I would, he replied simply. Unless you'd prefer I left. Part of her did. The larger part, the part still searching for closure, didn't. Suit yourself. At 7, Mira untied her apron and hung it in the small back room. She changed out of her work shoes into worn sneakers and pulled a faded denim jacket over her uniform. Alex was waiting by the door, having settled the check, including a tip that had made Kathy's eyes widen to saucers. Where to? He asked as they stepped outside into the cooling evening air. There's a park 2 blocks over, Mira said. It's quiet. They walked in silence, the contrast between them even more pronounced now. Alex in his impeccable suit, Mira in her waitress uniform partially hidden beneath her jacket. Once they had found common ground despite their different backgrounds. Now, 15 years of divergent lives stretched between them like an unbridgeable chasm. The park was little more than a small square of green with a few benches and a neglected playground. Mira led him to a bench beneath an old oak tree, its leaves beginning to turn with the season. The Ferrari get fixed? She asked, not because she cared, but because it was easier than asking the real question. They're towing it. Something about a custom part. He waved a hand dismissively. The car doesn't matter. Easy to say when you have a fleet of them, Mira observed. 3. I have 3 cars, not a fleet. A hint of defensiveness crept into his tone. My mistake. Just the 3 luxury vehicles worth more than most people in this neighborhood will earn in their lifetime. She couldn't help the bitterness seeping into her words. Alex exhaled slowly. I'm not going to apologize for my success, Mira, but I understand why you resent it. I don't resent your success, she corrected him. I resent that you benefited from the system that destroyed my family. I resent that you're sitting here in a suit that probably costs more than my monthly rent, acting like we can just pick up a conversation that ended 15 years ago. That's fair, he acknowledged, surprising her. But there are things you need to know. Things I should have told you years ago if I could have. Mira turned to face him fully. So tell me now. Alex's expression grew solemn. After I left that summer, I tried to move forward the way my father expected, become the Harrington heir, take my place in the company, but I couldn't do it, not knowing what he'd done to your family. I started investigating him, looking into his business practices. Investigating your own father? He nodded. I discovered that what he did to your father wasn't unusual. It was his standard operating procedure. Anyone who stood in his way, anyone who had something he wanted, he crushed them. He didn't build the Harrington empire. He conquered it, piece by piece, destroying lives in the process. The park had grown darker as twilight settled around them. In the distance, a streetlight flickered to life. I confronted him during my senior year of college, Alex continued. Told him I knew everything, the bribes, the threats, the shell companies. He didn't even deny it. Instead, he offered me a choice. Join him and learn to play the game his way or be cut off completely. And you chose the money, Mira said flatly. Alex's eyes flashed. No. I chose option 3. I walked away, finished my degree on student loans, got a job at a small engineering firm, lived in a studio apartment and ate ramen for 2 years while I developed my first patent. This revelation caught Mira off guard. It didn't align with what she thought she knew about Alexander Harrington's meteoric rise. The press calls me an overnight success, he said with a wry smile. The truth is, I spent 5 years building my company from nothing, sleeping on a futon in my office, putting everything back into the business. But the Harrington name, I didn't use it professionally. Not at first. I worked under my mother's maiden name, Clark. It wasn't until my company had secured its 3rd major contract that my connection to the Harrington family came out in the press. Mira processed this information slowly, reluctant to let go of the narrative she'd constructed over 15 years, the story of the privileged son who had abandoned her to claim his birthright. When my father died 7 years ago, I was already successful in my own right, Alex continued. The board offered me control of Harrington Industries. I took it not for the money or the power, but because I saw it as a chance to right some wrong. How noble, Mira said, unable to keep the skepticism from her voice. It wasn't nobility, he countered. It was atonement. I've spent the last 7 years transforming the company, implementing ethical business practices, establishing scholarship programs for underprivileged students, creating a foundation that helps small businesses that were victims of corporate predators like my father. The irony wasn't lost on her. So you're using the fortune built on ruined lives to ease your conscience. I'm using it to make amends, he corrected, and not just generally. I've been tracking down specific people my father harmed, offering restitution. A chill ran through Mira that had nothing to do with the evening air. Is that why you're here? You're checking me off some list of people your family destroyed? No, Alex said firmly. My car breaking down in your neighborhood was genuine coincidence. But seeing you again, single quotes, he hesitated, choosing his words carefully. It feels like something I've been waiting for without knowing it. The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. It would be so much easier if she could simply hate him, if he had turned out to be exactly the privileged, entitled man she had imagined all these years. What happened to your father's company isn't on my list, he admitted, because I could never find records of what happened. My father was thorough in covering his tracks. The official story was that Donovan Construction failed due to mismanagement, but I suspected the truth, and now, Mira asked, now I know for certain, and I can finally do something about it. Like what? You can't bring my parents back? No, he agreed quietly. I can't, but I can offer your brother a full scholarship through my foundation. I can establish a memorial fund in your parents' names. I can make sure that the truth about what happened to your father's company becomes part of the official record. Mira stood abruptly, anger flaring. You think you can just throw money at this and fix everything? That's exactly what your father would do. Try to buy his way out of responsibility. Alex remained seated, his gaze steady. I'm not trying to buy forgiveness, Mira. I'm trying to do what's right. Finally, 15 years too late. Yes, he agreed simply, too late for many things, but not too late for the truth. A silence fell between them, filled with the distant sounds of the city car horns, sirens, the persistent rhythm of urban life continuing around their small moment of reckoning. Why did you never try to find me again? Mira asked finally, the question that had haunted her for years. After college, after you were free of your father's control, you built this successful life. You could have looked for me. Alex's expression clouded with a pain so raw it startled her. I did. Alex repeated, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. 3 times. Mira stared at him, disbelief etched across her features. That's impossible. I would have known. Would you? He looked up at her, his expression pain. The first time was right after I graduated college. I'd finally broken free from my father's control. I drove to your old neighborhood, but as you said, your family had moved. No one knew where, or they weren't willing to tell a Harrington. Mira slowly sank back onto the bench, maintaining a careful distance. And the second time, after my first company went public, I was finally in a position where my father couldn't threaten me or anyone I cared about. I hired a private investigator. A humorless smile crossed his face. He found Amira Donovan teaching elementary school in Portland. I flew out there the next day. I've never been to Portland. I discovered that when I met a very confused 3rd-grade teacher who had no idea who I was. He shook his head at the memory. The PI apologized profusely, said he'd keep looking. The night air had grown cooler and Mira pulled her jacket tighter around herself. And the 3rd time, Alex was quiet for a long moment. After my father died, I found a file in his office safe, a surveillance file. Myra's blood ran cold. He had me watched, not recently, just that summer and the year after. Alex's jaw tightened. He wanted to make sure I wasn't trying to contact you. The file had your mother's name, your new address after you lost the house. It even had information about where you were working then, a frozen yogurt place at the mall. Sweet Swirls, Mira murmured. Her first job at 16, a lifetime ago. I went there immediately. They told me you'd quit years before. He looked at her directly. By then, you'd changed your name, professionally at least. Mira stiffened. How do you know that? Because when I tried to find Mira Donovan in the system school records, employment history, social media, there was nothing after a certain point. It was like you'd vanished. He paused. Until today, when I saw you, and knew immediately it was you. Mira looked away, uncomfortable with how easily he'd uncovered this part of her life after her father's death. After watching her mother work herself to exhaustion to support 2 children, she'd taken her mother's maiden name, Holloway, for job applications. It wasn't legal. Just practice. Too many employers in the business district remembered James Donovan's spectacular failure, his descent into alcoholism. The Donovan name had become toxic in certain circles. I didn't change it legally, she clarified. Just ... professionally. It was easier, I understand, Alex said softly. More than you might think. They sat in silence for a moment. The weight of 15 years of missed connections and misunderstandings settling between. So what happens now? Mira finally asked. You've made your confession. You've offered your charity. Is your conscience clear? Alex flinched as if she'd struck him. This isn't about clearing my conscience. This is about finally having the chance to tell you, to maybe find a way forward. A way forward, she repeated flatly. To what, exactly? We're not those kids anymore, Alex. You live in a world where broken Ferraris are an inconvenience. I live in a world where a broken down car means choosing between fixing it and making rent. I know that, he said, a hint of frustration entering his voice. I'm not naive enough to think we can just pick up where we left off, but seeing you again, ... single quotes he trailed off, search words. It means something, Mira. You meant something to me. You still do. The simple honesty in his voice caught her off guard. For a moment she glimpsed the boy she'd once known, earnest, determined, with a moral compass that had always pointed truer than his family name would suggest. I have responsibilities, she said finally. My brother depends on me. I have a life here. It's not the one I dreamed of, but it's mine. Tell me about him, Alex said, changing tack. Your brother Tyler, right? Despite herself, Myra smiled slightly. Brilliant. Always has been. Even when we were living in that cramped apartment, he'd build these incredible structures out of anything he could find. Cereal boxes, toilet paper rolls. By 12, he was designing floor plans for fun. He got the scholarship to state on his own merit. She continued, pride evident in her voice. But tuition's only part of it. There's housing, books, meals. I help where I can, but ... single quotes, she shrugged, the gesture encompassing the entirety of her limited means. You're raising him, Alex observed. After your parents died. Someone had to. He was 14 when Mom passed. The memory still pained her, signing guardianship papers, moving them into an even smaller apartment, picking up extra shifts to keep them afloat. It wasn't easy, but we managed. Alex's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it briefly, then silenced it again. Sorry, my assistant. She's persistent. Real life beckoning? Mira asked, unable to keep the edge from her voice. Just work. It can wait. He shifted on the bench, turning to face her more directly. Mira, I meant what I said about helping Tyler. No strings attached. He deserves a chance to fulfill his potential without the financial burden. And what would you tell him? Here's money because my father destroyed your family. I'd tell him it's a merit scholarship through the Harrington Foundation. Which it would be. He'd never have to know the rest. Mira stood again, needing to put physical distance between herself and the temptation of his offer. A full scholarship for Tyler would change everything. No more scraping by. No more late-night worry sessions about how they'd cover next semester's expenses. I don't want your guilt money, she said, but the conviction in her voice was wavering. It's not about guilt, Alex insisted, standing as well. It's about justice. It's about making right what my father made wrong. A bitter laugh escaped her. Justice would have been stopping your father 15 years ago. Justice would be my parents still being alive, my father's business still operating. This isn't justice, Alex, it's damage control. The hurt that flashed across his face was genuine, but so was the determination that followed it. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is too little, too late, but it's what I can offer now. And I'm offering it regardless of how you feel about me. The simplicity of this statement disarmed her. He wasn't trying to buy her forgiveness or her affection. He was simply trying to do what he thought was right, belatedly, imperfectly, but sincerely. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out to see a text from Tyler, heading to library. Don't wait up. Love you, your brother? Alex asked, noticing her expression soften. Mira nodded, tucking the phone away. He's got midterms coming up, practically living at the library. He sounds dedicated. He is. She hesitated, then added, he reminds me of you sometimes, the way you used to be, determined to carve his own path. Something like hope flickered in Alex's eyes at this small concession, the first suggestion that she remembered anything positive about him at all. The park had grown dark around them, the distant streetlights creating pools of yellow in the gathering night. It wasn't safe to linger much longer. This neighborhood transformed after dark. I should go, Mira said, glancing at her watch. Have an early shift tomorrow. Alex nodded, understanding. Can I give you a ride home? No, she answered quickly. Too quickly. I mean, I don't live far. I can walk. At least let me call you a car. I don't need... Please, he interrupted. Not because I think you can't take care of yourself, because it would make me feel better knowing you got home safely. Mira hesitated, torn between pride and practicality. It was a long walk and her feet already ached from her shift. Fine, she conceded finally. But just to my street corner, not my actual building. Alex didn't argue. He pulled out his phone and tapped a few times. It'll be here in 3 minutes. Black Toyota Camry. They walked in silence to the park entrance, the awkwardness between them returning now that their conversation had reached an impasse. Too much had been said to go back to being strangers, yet too many wounds remained open to move forward easily. Will you at least think about my offer? Alex asked as they reached the sidewalk. For Tyler's sake, if not your own. Mira looked at him, really looked at him for the first time since their unexpected reunion. The expensive suit and confident posture couldn't completely mask the shadows under his eyes. the tension in his shoulders. Success had come at a cost for him. "I'll think about it," she said finally, "but I'm not promising anything." Relief washed over his features. "That's all I'm asking." A black Toyota pulled up to the curb right on time. The driver rolled down the window, confirming he was looking for Mira. "This is me," she said unnecessarily, taking a step toward the car. Alex reached into his jacket, producing a business card. Not the glossy, embossed Harrington Industries card she'd expected, but a simpler one with just his name, personal email, and phone number. "In case you decide to call," he said, holding it out to her. "Day or night. For anything." Mira hesitated, then took the card, slipping it into her jacket pocket without looking at it. "Goodbye, Alex. For now," he corrected gently. "Not forever. Not again." She didn't respond to this, just slid into the waiting car and gave the driver an address 2 blocks from her actual apartment building. As they pulled away, she allowed herself one glance back through the rear window. Alex stood exactly where she'd left him, a solitary figure in an expensive suit, watching her drive away, just as he had 15 years ago. Except this time, she could see his face. This time she knew he wasn't leaving by choice. The car rounded a corner and he vanished from sight. Mira leaned back against the seat, her mind reeling from everything she'd learned. The card in her pocket seemed to burn through the fabric, a tangible reminder that the past wasn't as buried as she'd thought, that sometimes broken down cars on forgotten streets could become unexpected crossroads, and that maybe, just maybe, second chances didn't always come too late. The apartment was dark when Mira arrived home, save for the blue glow of Tyler's laptop left open on the kitchen table. She moved quietly through the small space, quote, dropping her keys in the ceramic dish by the door, a misshapen bowl Tyler had made in high school art class that had somehow become one of their most treasured possessions. She sank onto the worn couch, not bothering to turn on the lights. The business card Alex had given her seemed to weigh 100 pounds in her pocket. She pulled it out, studying it in the dim light filtering through the window blinds. No corporate logo, no fancy title, just his name, a phone number, and an email address. It was so at odds with the public image of Alexander Harrington, CEO and heir to a corporate empire. Mira's fingers hovered over her phone. It would be so easy to call, to accept his offer for Tyler's sake. The scholarship would change everything for her brother. No more late-night worries about tuition payments. No more juggling 3 jobs during summer breaks to cover expenses. But accepting meant acknowledging the connection between their families, the damage done, the lives altered. It meant letting Alex Harrington back into her life in some capacity, however peripheral. She set the phone down and rubbed her temples, exhaustion settling deep into her bones. Tomorrow. She would decide tomorrow. Sleep came fitfully, haunted by memories she'd thought long buried a younger Alex, laughing as they raced down to the creek behind his family's estate, stolen kisses in the garden shed while summer thunderstorms raged outside, whispered promises under a canopy of stars, and then the crushing silence that followed, the unanswered letters, the slow realization that he wasn't coming back. Morning arrived too soon, sunlight streaming through the thin curtains. Mira dragged herself out of bed, the previous day's encounter with Alex still feeling like a surreal dream. In the kitchen, Tyler was already up, hunched over a bowl of cereal and sketching in his notebook. At 20, he had their father's height and their mother's eyes, a combination that often made Mira's chest ache with both pride and loss. Morning, she mumbled, making a beeline for the coffee pot. Tyler glanced up, his pencil pausing mid-stroke. "You got in late? Double shift?" Something like that. She wasn't ready to tell him about Alex. Not yet. Not until she'd decided what to do. "I've been working on the design project," Tyler said, turning his sketchbook toward her. "Professor Linden thinks it has potential for the scholarship competition." Mira studied the intricate drawing, a community center designed to fit seamlessly into an urban landscape, incorporating green spaces and natural light. It was beautiful, innovative. It deserved to be more than lines on paper. "It's amazing, Ty," she said honestly. "When's the competition?" 2 weeks. First prize is a paid internship with Westbrook Associates next summer. His eyes lit up at the possibility, then dimmed slightly. It would mean moving to Chicago, though. The unspoken question hung between them. Could they afford it? Even with a paid internship, the cost of relocating. Finding housing in Chicago, it was a financial mountain neither of them was equipped to climb. "We'll figure it out," Mira said with more confidence than she felt. "You're too talented not to go." Tyler nodded, returning to his sketches. But Mira caught the slight tightening of his jaw, the same expression he'd worn when they'd had to tell him college applications could only go to state schools within commuting distance. The same look he'd had when he'd turned down a prestigious summer program because the scholarship didn't cover housing. Mira's resolve hardened. Tyler deserved better. He deserved every opportunity his talent had earned, not just the ones they could afford. After he left for class, Mira took out Alex's card again. The decision crystallized with sudden clarity. She wasn't doing this for herself or even for Alex's peace of mind. She was doing it for Tyler. She dialed the number before she could reconsider. Alex answered on the second ring as if he'd been waiting for her call. "Mira?" No preamble, no pretense that it might be anyone else. "I've been thinking about your offer," she said, skipping the pleasantries. "For Tyler, I'm glad." His voice was carefully neutral, giving nothing away. "I want to be clear about something," Mira continued, pacing the small kitchen. "If I accept your help, it's for him, not for me, and it doesn't change anything between us. I understand." A pause. "Would it be easier if we discussed this in person? Perhaps over lunch?" "I have work. Dinner, then." "After your shift." Mira hesitated. A phone call was safe. impersonal. Dinner meant sitting across from him again, navigating the complex emotions his presence stirred up. Fine, she relented, but not anywhere fancy. I'm not showing up at some five-star restaurant in my waitress uniform. Your choice of venue, Alex agreed readily. Text me when you finish work and I'll meet you. 7:30, she said. There's a place called Marino's 3 blocks from Ruby's. It's quiet and the food is decent. Marino's at 7:30, he confirmed. I'll be there. The line went silent and Mira stood in the middle of her kitchen wondering if she'd just made a terrible mistake. The rest of the day passed in a blur. She moved through her shift mechanically, taking orders, delivering food, making change. Every time the bell above the door jingled, her head snapped up, half expecting to see Alex walk in again. But he didn't appear, and by the time her shift ended, a knot of anxiety had formed in her stomach. Marino's was a small Italian restaurant that had somehow survived the neighborhood's economic decline. The decor was dated, but the food was good and the prices reasonable. Most importantly, it wasn't the kind of place Alexander Harrington would normally frequent, which meant they were unlikely to be recognized or interrupted. Mira arrived first, requesting a booth in the back. She was still in her uniform, having only had time to wash her face and reapply minimal makeup in Ruby's bathroom. Alex arrived exactly on time, dressed more casually than the day before in dark jeans and a gray sweater that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. Despite the less formal attire, he still looked every inch the successful businessman, confident, composed, out of place in the modest restaurant. He slid into the booth across from her, his gaze taking in her tired eyes and rumpled uniform without judgment. Thank you for meeting me, he said simply. I'm here for Tyler, she reminded him, defensive walls already rising. I know. He accepted a menu from the approaching waitress, ordering a glass of the house red wine. Mira asked for water. When they were alone again, Alex leaned forward slightly. I spent the day looking into our foundation's scholarship programs. We have several options that would be appropriate for Tyler's situation. And what situation is that? Mira asked sharply. A talented architecture student with financial need, Alex replied evenly. Nothing more, nothing less. As far as anyone would know, he applied and was selected based on merit, which is important because I suspect Tyler is as proud as his sister. A hint of a smile touched Alex's lips. And because he deserves to feel he earned this opportunity, not that it was handed to him. The waitress returned with their drinks. They ordered a margarita pizza to share, simple and neutral territory. Tell me how this would work, Mira said once they were alone again. The Harrington Foundation offers several types of scholarships, Alex explained. In Tyler's case, we could provide a full academic scholarship that covers remaining tuition, housing, books, and a stipend for living expense. It would be renewable annually, contingent only on maintaining good academic stand. And what about Chicago? The question slipped out before Mira could stop it. Chicago? Alex looked puzzled. There's a competition, an internship with Westbrook Associates. It's in Chicago, and even if Tyler wins, we couldn't afford the relocation. Alex's expression cleared. The scholarship could include a relocation stipend if he secures an internship. That's standard for our architecture student. The ease with which he solved a problem that had seemed insurmountable to her was both a relief and a bitter reminder of the vast gulf between their worlds. And what would Tyler have to do? Mira pressed. What's the application process? Normally it's quite extensive. Transcripts, portfolio, essays, recommendations, Alex admitted. But in this case, I'd expedite it. I'd need his student ID number, current academic standing, and a sample of his work. The foundation would handle the rest. And he never learns the real reason? Never, Alex promised. As far as Tyler would know, he was selected based solely on his talent and potential. Their pizza arrived, steam rising from the fresh mozzarella. Neither made a move to take a slice. Why are you really doing this, Alex? Mira asked quietly. And don't tell me it's just about making amends. There must be thousands of people your father hurt over the years. You can't possibly be tracking down all of them. Alex was quiet for a long moment, considering his answer. You're right, I can't help everyone my father harmed, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't help when I can. He paused, his gaze direct and unwavering. And yes, the fact that it's you matters. I won't pretend it doesn't, because you feel guilty, because you mattered to me, he corrected. You still do. What happened to your family, what my father did, it changed both our lives. Maybe I can't undo that damage, but I can try to ensure it doesn't limit Tyler's future too. The simple honesty in his voice made it hard for Mira to maintain her anger. Hard to remember all the reasons she should keep him at arm's length. I need to think about it, she said finally. I need to talk to Tyler, not about everything, just about the scholarship. See how he feels. Alex nodded, accepting her caution. Take whatever time you need. He reached for a slice of pizza, a subtle shift to lighter territory. Tell me more about him. What kind of architecture is he interested in? For the next hour, they ate and talked. Mira found herself sharing stories about Tyler, his first architectural model made from popsicle sticks, passion for sustainable design, his stubborn determination to succeed despite the odds stacked against him. Alex listened intently, asking thoughtful questions, never interrupting. For brief moments, Mira could almost forget the weight of their shared history, the complexity of the offer on the table, almost. As they finished the meal, Alex insisted on paying, waving away Myra's protest. Please. It's just dinner. Outside, the night air was cool against Mira's skin. They stood awkwardly on the sidewalk, the evening coming to its natural conclusion. I'll let you know, Mira said, answering the question Alex hadn't asked. About the scholarship. Once I've talked to Tyler, of course. He hesitated, then added, regardless of what you decide about the scholarship. I'd like to see you again, Mira, just to talk. The request hung between them. Simple, sincere, dangerous in its potential to complicate an already complex situation. One thing at a time, she replied softly. Let's figure out Tyler's future first. Alex nodded, accepting the boundary. Good night, Mira. Good night, Alex. As she walked home, Mira realized with startling clarity that for the first time in 15 years, she hadn't added goodbye in her heart. The apartment was quiet when Mira returned home, but a strip of light showed beneath Tyler's door. She knocked softly, pushing it open when he called out. Tyler was at his desk, surrounded by textbooks and sketches, his laptop screen casting a blue glow across his tired face. He looked so much like their father in that moment, the same focused expression, the same stubborn set to his jaw, that it made Mira's heart ache. Hey, she said, leaning against the doorframe. Got a minute? Sure. He pushed back from the desk, stretching. How was work? The usual. She hesitated, unsure how to broach the subject. I actually wanted to talk to you about something, an opportunity. Tyler's expression shifted, immediately wary. Experience had taught him that opportunities in their world often came with impossible trade-offs. What kind of opportunity? Mira crossed the small room and perched on the edge of his bed. I heard about a scholarship through the Harrington Foundation. It's for architecture students. Full ride plus housing and expenses. Tyler's eyebrows shot up. The Harrington Foundation? As in Harrington Industries? They're like Fortune 500. Yeah, that one. Mira kept her voice neutral, giving nothing away. And how exactly did you hear about this? They don't exactly advertise at Ruby's. Mira had prepared for this question on the walk home. A partial truth seemed the best approach. I met someone who works with their foundation. They mentioned they're looking for talented students, especially those interested in sustainable design. Tyler's eyes narrowed slightly. He'd always been too perceptive for her comfort. Just like that, some random person mentions a full ride scholarship. Not random, Mira admitted. Someone I knew a long time ago before Mom died. This was enough to shift Tyler's focus. He rarely asked about Myra's life before she became his guardian. The years before their parents' deaths were a foggy landscape neither of them ventured into often. And you trust them? He asked. I'm verifying everything, she assured him. But yes, I believe this is legitimate. Tyler turned back to his desk, fidgeting with a pencil. What's the catch? These big corporate foundations always have an angle. The usual, maintain your GPA. Submit progress reports. There's also funding for internships, including relocation. She let this last part land casually, watching his reaction. Tyler's head snapped up. Relocation? Like for Chicago? Potentially, yes. The pencil stilled in his fingers. You're serious? I wouldn't joke about this, Ty. He was silent for a long moment, absorbing the implications. What would I need to do? To apply? They'd need your student ID, transcripts, and samples of your work. I could help you put together a portfolio. Tyler stood abruptly, pacing the small confines of his room. Mira recognized this habit. Is how he processed big news, good or bad. It seems too good to be true, he said finally, voicing her own initial reaction. These kinds of scholarships don't just fall into people's laps, especially not ours. The bitterness in his voice was a knife to Mira's heart. At 20, Tyler already understood too well that the world operated on different rules for different people. The Donovans had always been on the wrong side of that equation. Maybe our luck is changing, she offered softly. Tyler stopped pacing, studying her face. There's something you're not telling me. Mira maintained her composure. I'm just trying to help you get what you deserve. A real shot, without having to worry about money for once. He seemed to accept this, or at least decided not to push further. When would I need to apply? I can get you the details tomorrow, but soon, I think. Tyler nodded slowly. I'll need to update my portfolio. The semester project isn't finished, but the preliminary designs are solid. The transition to practical concerns was so typically Tyler that Mira had to smile. Always forward-looking. Always planning the next step. We'll figure it out, she assured him, standing. Get some sleep, okay? You look exhausted, says the woman working double shifts. He countered, but his expression had softened. And Mira, thanks for always looking out for me. The simple gratitude caught her off guard. That's what family does. She closed his door quietly, retreating to her own small bedroom. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she pulled out her phone and Alex's business card. She hesitated only briefly before typing a text message. Talk to Tyler. He's interested. What's the next step? The response came almost immediately, as if Alex had been waiting. I'll have the foundation send application details tomorrow. Nothing will indicate special consideration. Thank you for giving him this chance. Mira stared at the screen, at the careful formality of his message. Professional, appropriate, nothing to suggest their complicated history or the emotions still simmering beneath the surface. She typed back a simple thank you and set her phone aside, too drained to parse her conflicted feelings about accepting Alex's help. Sleep came easier that night, the weight of constant worry temporarily lifted from her shoulders. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future where Tyler had the freedom to pursue his dreams without limitation, where his talent could take him as far as his ambition. And if in those moments between wakefulness and dreaming, her thoughts drifted to Alex, to the earnest look in his eyes when he'd said she still mattered to him, she chose not to examine it too closely. The next morning brought an email from the Harrington Foundation to Tyler's student account. He burst into the kitchen, laptop in hand, while Mira was making coffee. Did you see this? He demanded, turning the screen toward her. They're specifically inviting me to apply. How did they even know about me? Mira feigned surprise, scanning the professionally worded invitation. The foundation had done exactly as Alex promised, framed it as a talent scouting initiative with no mention of special consideration or family connections. Maybe one of your professors recommended you, she suggested. You said Professor Linden was impressed with your work. Tyler seemed to accept this explanation, too excited by the opportunity to question it deeply. The application deadline is next week. I need to get my portfolio together. And they want an essay on sustainable urban development. That's perfect. I've been researching that for my semester project. His enthusiasm was infectious, and Mira found herself smiling genuinely as he outlined his application strategy, planning which projects to include, which professors to ask for recommendations. I think I actually have a shot at this, he said, a rare note of optimism in his voice. Of course you do, Mira replied firmly. Your work is exceptional. They'd be lucky to have you. As Tyler threw himself into preparing his application, Mira tried to maintain a careful distance from the process. She offered encouragement and practical support, but deliberately avoided direct involvement. This needed to feel earned, not arranged. 3 days later, she received another text from Alex. Are you free for coffee tomorrow? There's something I'd like to discuss. Not about Tyler's scholarship, that's proceeding as planned. Mira stared at the message for a long time. The sensible answer was no. Establishing ongoing contact with Alex would only complicate an already precarious situation, but curiosity and something else she wasn't ready to name one out. Ruby's is slow on Thursday mornings. I can take a break around 10. His reply was immediate. I'll be there the following morning. Mira found herself checking the clock every few minutes, torn between anticipation and apprehension. At precisely 10 a.m., the bell above the door announced Alex's arrival. He was dressed more casually, again dark slacks and a light blue button-down. No tie, less conspicuous in the modest diner setting, but still emanating an unmistakable air of privilege and power. Several regular customers glanced up, immediately marking him as an outsider. Kathy raised an eyebrow as Mira untied her apron. Your old friend is back, she murmured. Must be some friend. It's complicated, Mira replied, which was perhaps the understatement of the century. Alex had chosen a booth near the back, away from the windows, a consideration that didn't go unnoticed. He stood when she approached, a gesture from another era that seemed both archaic and oddly touching. Thanks for meeting me, he said as they both sat. How are you? Busy, she answered truthfully. Tyler's been working non-stop on his application. I've barely seen him except when I force him to eat something. Alex smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his features. That's good. Passion is important. What did you want to discuss? Mira asked, cutting to the chase. She only had 15 minutes before the breakfast rush would require her return. Alex seemed to gather his thoughts. I've been thinking about what you said about my father's actions having consequences beyond just business. About your parents. Mira tensed, instantly on guard. What about them? I want to make it right, he said simply. Not just for Tyler, but for your family's legacy. My family doesn't have a legacy, Mira countered. That's the point. Your father made sure of that. But it should, Alex insisted. Your father was a skilled contractor whose reputation was deliberately destroyed. That's not right, and it shouldn't be the end of the story. Mira studied him warily. What exactly are you suggesting? A scholarship fund, he said, in your parents' names. The James and Helen Donovan Memorial Scholarship for Construction Management and Nursing students, to honor both their professions. The proposal struck Mira speechless. Of all the things she'd expected Alex to say, this wasn't on the list. Why would you do that? She found. Because they deserve to be remembered for who they were. Not for what was done to them, Alex replied, and because their story should help others like them, talented, hard-working people who just need a fair chance. Tears pricked unexpectedly at the corners of Mira's eyes. She blinked them back, unwilling to show such vulnerability in her workplace. I'd need to think about it, she said, her voice slightly unsteady. It's not just my decision. Tyler should have a say. Of course, Alex agreed immediately. Take all the time you need. The foundation can establish it whenever you're ready. A comfortable silence settled between them, the weight of his offer hanging in the air. For the first time, Mira allowed herself to consider that Alex's reappearance in her life might be more than just an uncomfortable reminder of the past. It might also be an opportunity to reclaim parts of herself and her family that she had thought lost forever. The week that followed passed in a blur of activity. Tyler threw himself into a scholarship application with single-minded determination, often working late into the night perfecting his portfolio and essay. Mira watched him with a mixture of pride and guilt, pride in his dedication, guilt over the secret arrangement that hovered beneath the surface. She hadn't yet told Tyler about Alex's proposal for the memorial scholarship. That conversation required more time and emotional bandwidth than either of them could spare at the moment. Instead, she focused on the immediate. Extra shifts at Ruby's, keeping Tyler fed during his application frenzy, and managing the unexpected text messages from Alex that had somehow become a regular occurrence. They were casual, these messages. Updates about the Foundation's scholarship committee, questions about Tyler's progress, occasional personal inquiries about her day. Each one represented a tiny thread reconnecting them after 15 years of silence, forming a tenuous bridge between their separate worlds. Mira found herself responding more often than not, sometimes with brief, practical answers, sometimes late at night night when the apartment was quiet and memories seemed closer to the surface with reflections that surprised even her. On Thursday evening, exactly 1 week after their coffee meeting, Mira's phone buzzed with a new message from Alex. Tyler's application arrived today. The committee was impressed. They fast-tracked it for review. Mira felt a complex surge of emotions, relief, gratitude, and underneath it all, a persistent discomfort with the special treatment, necessary as it might be. When will he hear? She typed back. Early next week, likely Tuesday. Officially, they're expediting several candidates for mid-year scholarship. His will be among them. Mira was about to respond when Tyler emerged from his room, looking exhausted but satisfied. It's done, he announced, dropping onto the couch beside her. Just submitted the final recommendation letter. Professor Linden really came through. Wrote me a glowing reference. Mira quickly set her phone face down. That's great, Ty. I'm proud of you. Now comes the hard part, he sighed, waiting. The email said decisions would be made by next week. He stretched, joints popping. I'm not getting my hopes up, though. These national scholarships are super competitive. Guilt gnawed at Mira's conscience. Your work speaks for itself, she said, the words feeling hollow despite their truth. You deserve this. Tyler gave her a sideways glance. You okay? You seem tense lately, just tired, she deflected. Double shifts this week. You work too much. He frowned. Always have, says the guy who hasn't slept in 3 days, she countered, grateful for the shift in focus. Come on. I ordered pizza. It should be here any minute. The evening settled into comfortable routine pizza on the couch, a mindless cooking competition on their ancient TV. For a few hours, Mira could almost forget the complicated web she'd woven, the way her past and present had collided in unexpected ways. Later, after Tyler had gone to bed, she retrieved her phone and found another message waiting. Are you free on Saturday afternoon? There's something I'd like to show you, related to our discussion about your parents. Mira hesitated. Each interaction with Alex pulled her further into uncertain territory. Yet curiosity and something more complex she wasn't ready to name compelled her to agree. I'm off at 2. What did you have in mind? His response came quickly. I'll pick you up at 2:30. Dress casually. If that works for you. Mira stared at the message, imagining how easily she could decline. Step back from this gradual reintegration of Alex Harrington into her life. Instead, she typed, okay, corner of Maple and 6th. Saturday arrived with unseasonable warmth. The October sun creating the illusion of early autumn rather than its dying days. Mira finished her shift at Ruby's and changed into the spare clothes she'd brought, dark jeans and a simple blue blouse. The nicest casual outfit she owned. Kathy eyed her suspiciously as she emerged from the bathroom. Hot date? Just meeting a friend, Mira replied. The word friend feeling inadequate yet also excessive for whatever Alex was to her now. Kathy hummed skeptically. The same friend who's been texting you all week? The one in the expensive suit? It's complicated, Mira said, repeating what had become her mantra regarding Alex. Kathy's expression softened. Just be careful, honey. Men like that. They live in a different world. They don't always understand what it costs people like us to hope. The warning struck closer to home than Kathy could know. Mira merely nodded and headed out, wondering if she was making a terrible mistake. At precisely 2:30, a sleek silver Audi pulled up to the curb where Mira waited. The window lowered, revealing Alex behind the wheel. No driver this time. Hi, he said simply, a smile warming his features. Mira slid into the passenger seat, immediately enveloped in the scent of leather and Alex's subtle cologne. The interior was immaculate. The dashboard, a sophisticated array of technology that made her suddenly self-conscious of her worn jeans and department store blouse. Thanks for coming, Alex said, pulling smoothly into traffic. I think you'll find this interesting. You're being mysterious, Mira observed, watching his profile. In casual clothes, a light sweater, and dark jeans that probably cost more than her monthly rent, he looked younger. Less like the intimidating CEO and more like the boy she had once known. I prefer to think of it as building anticipation, he replied, a hint of teasing in his voice. They drove for nearly 20 minutes, leaving the familiar grid of Mira's neighborhood for wider streets lined with trees just beginning to turn golden. Eventually, they turned onto a boulevard. Mira recognized the entrance to Westbrook Business Park, one of the city's more upscale commercial developments. What are we doing here? She asked, puzzled. You'll see, Alex said, navigating through the complex to a construction site at its far end. A partially completed building rose from concrete foundations, steel beams outlining what would eventually be a multi-story structure. Alex parked in a designated area and turned to her, suddenly serious. Before we go further, I want you to know that you can say no to this. To all of it. There's no obligation. Mira's confusion deepened. Say no to what? Come on, he said instead of answering. It's easier if I show you. They approached the construction site where Alex retrieved hard hats from a security station. The guard nodded in recognition, clearly expecting them. Mr. Herring, Miss Donovan. They're waiting for you in the trailer. Mira shot Alex a questioning look at the use of her real surname, not the Holloway alias she used professionally, but he merely guided her toward a temporary office set up at the edge of the site. Inside, 3 people stood as they entered, 2 men and a woman, all in business attire, looking expectant. Alex, right on time, the older man said, extending his hand. And this must be Miss Donovan. Mira, this is Howard Westbrook, president of Westbrook Development. Alex introduced them, and his associates, Carl Chun and Elise Morales. Westbrook, the same company offering the internship Tyler was hoping for in Chicago. Mira shook hands automatically, her mind racing to connect the dots. Please sit. Westbrook gestured to chairs around a conference table covered with architectural plans. Alex has told us about your father's company and its unfortunate dissolution. Mira shot Alex a sharp look. He hadn't mentioned sharing her family history with others. What exactly is this about? She asked directly. Alex nodded to Westbrook, who tapped the plans on the table. This is our newest project, a mixed-use development with retail, office space, and affordable housing units. We're calling it the Phoenix Complex. The name sent an involuntary shiver down Myra's spine. Phoenix, rebirth from ashes. The symbolism wasn't subtle. It's the interesting part, Westbrook continued, is that we've been searching for the right contractor to handle the residential phase. Someone with experience in affordable housing. Someone who understands this community. And that's where Donovan Construction comes in, Alex said quietly. Mira's head snapped up. Donovan Construction hasn't existed for 15 years. Not yet, Alex agreed, but it could, quote, with the right backing and the right project to launch it. The room seemed to tilt slightly as Mira processed his words. You want to restart my father's company? We want to offer you the opportunity, Westbrook corrected. With financial backing from Harrington Ventures, Alex's personal investment firm, not Harrington Industries, and a guaranteed first contract with us. This is insane, Mira said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm a waitress. I don't know anything about running a construction company, but you know this community, Alex countered. You know what people here need in affordable housing because you've lived it. And you'd have partners, experienced project managers who could handle the technical aspects while you focus on the vision and client relations. We wouldn't be considering this if Alex hadn't vouched for your family's reputation, Westbrook added. I did some research after he approached me. Your father's work was exceptional, solid, innovative, on time and on budget. The industry lost something valuable when Donovan Construction went under. Myra felt lightheaded, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they were proposing. It was too much, too grand a gesture, too complex an arrangement, too deeply tied to wounds that had never fully healed. I need some air, she said abruptly, rising from her chair. Alex immediately stood. Of course, take all the time you need. Outside, Mira leaned against the trailer, breathing deeply. The construction site sprawled before her, raw, unfinished, full of potential, just like the offer that had been laid at her feet. She heard the door open and close softly behind her. I should have prepared you better, Alex said, joining her against the wall. I'm sorry. What are you doing, Alex? Mira asked, turning to face him. Really? What is all this? He met her gaze steadily, trying to restore what was taken. Not just from you, but from this community. Your father built homes people could afford without sacrificing quality or dignity. That legacy deserves to continue. And you think I can do that? Based on what? Based on how you've raised Tyler, how you've held together what remained of your family, how you've never stopped fighting even when the odds were stacked against you. His voice softened. You're the strongest person I've ever known, Mira, you always were. The sincerity in his words cracked something in her carefully maintained armor. I don't know if I can do this, she admitted. You don't have to decide today, he assured her. Take time, talk to Tyler, consider all the angles, if you decide it's not right for you. There are other ways to honor your father's legacy. Mira studied his face, searching for hidden motives, for the catch that surely must exist. Why does this matter so much to you? Alex was quiet for a moment. Because some debts can't be repaid with money alone. Because making amends means more than writing a check. And because ... single quotes, he hesitated, then finished softly. Because you once believed I could be better than my family name. I'd like to prove you right, even if it's 15 years late. The simple honesty in his answer resonated through her, connecting to the girl she had been, the one who had seen possibility and goodness in a boy weighed down by family expectations and wealth. I need time, she said finally. You have it, he replied. This opportunity isn't going. As they stood together in the autumn sunlight, surrounded by the skeletal beginnings of something new, Mira felt the ground shifting beneath her feet, not collapsing as it had so many times before, but perhaps finally beginning to rebuild. The apartment door burst open with such force that Mira nearly dropped the mug of coffee she'd been nursing at the kitchen table. Tyler stood in the doorway, breathless, his laptop clutched to his chest like a shield. I got it, he said, his voice cracking with disbelief. Mira, I got the scholarship. For a moment she froze, the practiced surprise she'd rehearsed for this moment suddenly unnecessary in the face of her brother's raw emotion. The joy in his eyes was real, unalloyed by any knowledge of behind-the-scenes maneuvering. To Tyler, this was a miracle validation of his talent, his work, his potential. Let me see, she managed, setting down her coffee. Tyler practically lunged toward her, opening his laptop on the table. The email was formal, professional. The Harrington Foundation is pleased to inform you, ... single quotes. But the meaning was clear. A full scholarship covering tuition, housing, books, and living expenses, a stipend for internships including relocation costs, renewable for up to 3 years, contingent on academic performance. This is incredible, Mira said, and meant it, even knowing the arrangement with Alex. Seeing the actual award letter made it real in a way that conversations hadn't. I can't believe it, Tyler said, running a hand through his hair. I mean, I knew my portfolio was solid, but this changes everything, and it did. In the span of a single email, their financial tightrope walk had suddenly stabilized. The constant worry about Tyler's education costs, the second jobs during breaks, the textbook payment plans, the cheaper apartment farther from campus, all of it Gone. I'm proud of you, Mira said, the words catching slightly in her throat, because despite the circumstances, she was fiercely, achingly proud of her brother. The scholarship might have been expedited, but Tyler's talent was genuine. His work had spoken for itself. I need to call Professor Linden, Tyler said, already reaching for his phone. She'll be thrilled, and I should thank her for the recommendation letter. It must have been amazing. As Tyler stepped into his room to make the call, Mira reached for her own phone. The text she'd been composing to Alex sat unsent in her draft folder. Now she completed it. Tyler got the news. He's over the moon. Thank you. The response came almost immediately. No thanks needed. His portfolio was exceptional. The committee was genuinely impressed. Mira stared at the message, recognizing the careful balance Alex was striking, acknowledging the truth of Tyler's talent, while subtly reassuring her that this wasn't just charity. It was an act of justice with a foundation of merit. She typed back, still thinking about the other. It's a lot to process. Again, his reply was swift. Take all the time you need. The opportunity remains open. Tyler emerged from his room, still grinning. Professor Linden screamed when I told her. Said she's taking me out for coffee tomorrow to celebrate. She should, Mira smiled. She's been your champion since day one. I still can't believe it, Tyler said, shaking his head. Do you know what this means? I can actually compete for that Chicago internship without worrying about how we'd afford it. The we didn't escape Mira's notice, the automatic inclusion of her in his future plans, the deeply ingrained knowledge that they were a team, that his decisions affected them both. You're going to get that internship, she said with conviction. Your design is brilliant. Tyler's expression shifted slightly, a shadow of uncertainty crossing his features. You'd be okay with that? Me going to Chicago for the summer? The question struck at the heart of the change happening between them, the gradual, necessary separation as Tyler moved toward independence. For years, they had been all the other had. The thought of him in another city building a life beyond their shared struggle was both wrenching and exactly what she wanted for him. Of course I would, Mira assured him. That's the whole point, Ty. For you to go as far as your talent can take you. He studied her face. What about you, though? You've put your whole life on hold for me. I haven't. You have, he insisted. College, career, relationships, gave up everything to raise me after mom. Don't think I don't know that. The directness of his assessment caught her off guard. They rarely spoke of the sacrifices she'd made, the dreams she'd deferred. It was never a question, she said simply. You were what mattered. And now, Tyler pressed, what about what you want? The question lingered in the air between them, heavier than it had any right to be. What did she want? For so long, her wants had been subsumed by necessity. Pay the rent, keep the lights on, make sure Tyler had what he needed. The luxury of desire, of ambition for herself, had been set aside so thoroughly she wasn't sure she remembered how to access it. I'm working on figuring that out, she admitted. Tyler's expression softened. Does it have anything to do with your mysterious friend, the one you've been texting? Heat crept into Myra's cheeks. What makes you think, please? He interrupted with a knowing smile. The apartment is tiny. I have eyes. And you actually smile at your phone now, Mira sighed. This was the downside of raising a perceptive, intelligent young man. Nothing escaped his notice. It's complicated, she said, falling back on her standard explanation. Isn't it always? Tyler leaned against the counter. So who is he? Or she? He's ... Single quotes. Mira hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Someone I knew a long time ago, before everything happened with Dad's business. Tyler's expression turned serious. They rarely discussed that period, the rapid collapse of their father's company, the downward spiral that followed. From the old neighborhood, he asked, and we still had the house? Mira nodded, bracing herself for more questions. But Tyler simply absorbed this information, his analytical mind filing it away. Well, whoever they are, he said finally, they make you less sad, I've noticed. The simple observation hit Mira like a physical touch. Had she been sad? Not depressed, not broken, but carrying a quiet sadness so constant she'd stopped recognizing its presence. I'm not sad, she protested automatically. Tyler gave her a look that belonged on someone twice his age. Mira, I love you, but you've been sad for as long as I can remember. Not all the time, not overwhelmingly, but it's been there like background noise. These past couple weeks it's been quieter. She had no response to this. How could she explain that Alex's reappearance had been both the reopening of an old wound and somehow the beginning of its proper healing? That facing the truth about what had happened to their family had been painful but also freeing. Anyway, Tyler continued, sensing her discomfort, I'm glad. You deserve good things too, you know, not just me. Before she could formulate a response, his phone chimed with a new message. That's my study group, he said, checking the screen. We're meeting to work on the midterm project. Is it okay if I go? Mira said, grateful for the interruption. Celebrate your scholarship. You earned it. After Tyler left, Mira sat alone in the quiet apartment, his words echoing in her mind. You deserve good things too. It was a simple statement, but it landed with the weight of revelation. Had she forgotten that? Had she been so focused on surviving, on ensuring Tyler's future, that she'd surrendered the idea of her own? Her phone buzzed with a new message from Alex. Westbrook called. They're eager to move forward with Phoenix, with or without Donovan construction, but they're willing to hold the residential phase for another 2 weeks while you decide. The message was neutral, informative, without pressure, but the implication was clear. Time was limited. Decisions needed to be made. Mira stared at her phone, then around the small apartment that had been their home for the past 7 years. It was clean, functional, filled with the modest trappings of their lifestyler's architectural models. Her collection of secondhand novels, the faded family photos that had survived their various moves. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine something different, not just for Tyler but for herself. Donovan Construction risen from the ash, her father's legacy restored, transformed by her own vision. A future not defined by loss and survival but by creation and growth. The thought was simultaneously exhilarating and terrifying. She picked up her phone and typed, "I want to see the site plans again, and talk to the project managers you mentioned. If I'm going to consider this seriously, I need to understand exactly what I'd be getting into." Alex's response came quickly, "I'll set it up for tomorrow afternoon. And Mira, thank you for being willing to consider it." She set the phone down, a strange sense of lightness spreading through her chest. For the first time in 15 years, she was looking forward, not back, planning, not just reacting. It was unfamiliar territory, fraught with uncertainty. But perhaps she thought uncertainty wasn't always the enemy. Sometimes it was simply the price of possibility. The following days passed in a whirlwind of activity. True to his word, Alex had arranged meetings with project managers, financial advisors, and industry consultants, all people who could help transform the abstract idea of a revived Donovan Construction into concrete reality. Mira had approached each meeting with cautious skepticism, expecting to be patronized or dismissed. Instead, she found herself listened to, her questions taken seriously, her instincts about what the community needed validated by professionals with decades of experience. The affordable housing component is crucial, she insisted during a planning session with Elena Vasquez, the architect assigned to the Phoenix project, not just in terms of cost but design. These need to feel like homes, not boxers checked off to fulfill a zoning requirement. Elena had nodded, making notes. "I completely agree. Dignity in design shouldn't be a luxury. What specific elements would make these units feel like homes to the people in this neighborhood?" The question had caught Mira off guard. No one had asked for her opinion on architectural design before. Yet suddenly she found herself drawing on years of observation, what made their cramped apartment feel like home despite its limitations, what her neighbors complained about most in their buildings, what small luxuries made the biggest difference in daily life. "Natural light," she began, surprising herself with the confidence in her voice. "Even in affordable units, windows matter, and soundproof and cheap construction often means hearing everything your neighbors do. It's stressful, makes it impossible to truly relax in your own space." As she spoke, articulating needs and insights drawn from lived experience rather than theory, Mira glimpsed a version of herself she barely recognized, someone whose perspective had value precisely because it wasn't shaped by formal education or industry standards. Today marked another milestone, her first official visit to the Phoenix site as a potential contractor rather than just an observer. Alex had arranged for her to meet with the entire development team, to walk through the blueprints and the physical space her company, if she decided to form it, would be responsible for building. The thought still felt surreal. Donovan Construction, her father's name, her leadership, a way to honor his memory while building something new. Mira dressed carefully that morning, selecting the one business outfit she owned, a navy blazer and matching pants she'd bought for job interviews years ago, paired with a simple white blouse. The ensemble was far from designer quality, but it was clean, professional, something she could wear without feeling entirely out of place among people in much more expensive clothing. Tyler had already left for class, his schedule now busier than ever as the scholarship had opened new doors. He'd been selected for an accelerated studio project, working directly with a visiting professor from an architectural firm in New York. His excitement was palpable, his confidence growing daily. His transformation had been remarkable to witness. Freedom from financial anxiety had allowed his natural talent and ambition to flourish. He stood straighter, smiled more easily, engaged more fully with his education instead of constantly calculating costs against benefits. Could the same transformation happen for her? The question had been circling in Myra's mind as she considered Alex's offer. Not just what it would mean professionally, but personally, how it might reshape her sense of self, her possibility. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alex. "Car will pick you up at 11. The team is looking forward to meeting you officially," she typed back. "On my way down." Nervous but ready, his response was, "You've got this. Just be exactly who you are, that's who they need." The simple encouragement steadied her. Whatever complicated history lay between them, whatever uncertainties clouded their present connection, Alex's belief in her abilities seemed genuine. The car, a more understated sedan this time, not the ostentatious Escalade, arrived precisely on time. The driver opened the door for her and Mira slid into the back seat, surprised to find Alex already inside. "Hope you don't mind the company," he said, his expression warm but slightly uncertain. "Thought you might appreciate a friendly face before diving into the deep end." He was dressed in what Mira had come to recognize as his working casual attire, tailored pants and a light sweater over a button-down, expensive without being flashy. The outfit probably cost more than her entire wardrobe, yet he wore it with an unconscious ease that made it seem unremarkable. "Thanks," she said, meaning it. "I could use the moral support." As the car pulled into traffic, Alex handed her a sleek leather portfolio. I took the liberty of putting together some materials you might find useful. The complete site plan, background on the team members you'll be meeting, a preliminary budget breakdown for the residential phase. Mira opened the portfolio, finding everything meticulously organized and annotated. This must have taken hours. I have assistants, he said with a self-deprecating smile, then added more seriously, but yes, I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed to make an informed decision. No pressure, just information. The care represented by the detailed files touched her more deeply than an extravagant gesture would have. This wasn't about impressing her with wealth or power. It was about equipping her to succeed on her own terms. I've been thinking about your offer, Mira said, closing the portfolio. Really thinking about it. Alex nodded, his expression carefully neutral. And I want to do it, she said, the words feeling momentous as they left her mouth. I want to rebuild Donovan Construction. The smile that broke across Alex's face was unguarded, genuine. A flash of the boy she had once known shining through the polished exterior of the man he had become. That's ... single quotes, he began, then paused, collecting himself. That's wonderful news, Mira, truly. But I have conditions, she continued, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. If we're going to do this, we'd do it right. Of course, he agreed. What are your terms? First, I want complete independence. Your investment gets you a seat at the table, not control of the company. Donovan Construction makes its own decisions. Alex nodded without hesitation. Absolutely. That was always the intention. Second, I want to hire locally whenever possible. Not just laborers, but subcontract suppliers. I want this project to benefit the community it's being built in. Westbrook will have no objection to that. In fact, they'll probably see it as a PR win. Third, Mira continued, gaining confidence with each point, I want to establish an apprenticeship program as part of the company for young people from the neighborhood who want to learn construction trades but can't afford traditional education paths. This brought a thoughtful expression to Alex's face. An excellent idea. It would require some additional funding, but which is why part of our agreement should include a percentage of profits dedicated specifically to training and education, Mira finished. I've been doing some research. Several major construction firms have similar programs. They're not just charitable, they're practical. They help build a skilled workforce in communities that need economic opportunities. Alex studied her with newfound respect. You've really thought this through. I've had to, Mira said simply. If I'm going to put my father's name on this company, it has to stand for something more than just making money. It has to be about rebuilding in every sense. The car had reached the construction site, but neither made a move to exit. The moment felt significant, a turning point requiring acknowledgement. These terms are all entirely reasonable, Alex said finally. I can have the legal team draft an agreement that incorporates them all. Is there anything else? Mira hesitated, then added the final condition, the one that mattered most personally. I want transparency between us. Complete honesty about why you're doing this, what you hope to gain from it. No hidden agendas. Alex's expression softened. That's fair. And the honest answer is complicated. He paused, choosing his words carefully. There's the business aspect. This is a sound investment in a growth sector with a partner who has unique insights into an underserved market. There's the moral aspect, making amends for what my father did to your family. And then there's the personal aspect, ... single quotes, he trailed off, meeting her gaze directly. I've missed you, Mira. For 15 years, I've wondered what might have been if my father hadn't interfered. This doesn't undo what happened, but it creates something new, a connection that's ours to define whatever shape that ultimately takes. The rawness of his admission hung in the air between them, neither professional nor purely friendly. An acknowledgement of feelings too complex to be easily categorized. Thank you for being honest, Mira said quietly. Always, he promised. From now on, always. The driver opened the door, breaking the moment. Outside, the Phoenix construction site awaited steel framework reaching toward the sky. Concrete foundations laid and curing the bones of something new taking shape from emptiness. As they walked toward the site office, Mira felt a profound sense of alignment, past and present, personal and professional, loss and creation all converging at this unlikely crossroads. Whatever came next, she was no longer just reacting to circumstances thrust upon her. She was choosing, building, creating her own path forward. It was terrifying and exhilarating. And for the first time in 15 years, it felt right. 6 weeks later, on a crisp December morning, Mira stood at the edge of the Phoenix construction site, watching her breath cloud in the cold air. The steel framework had evolved significantly since her first visit, the skeleton of the future complex taking more definitive shape against the winter sky. Today marked the official groundbreaking for the residential phase Donovan Construction's first project. Media had been invited, along with city officials and community representatives. It was a carefully orchestrated event designed to generate positive press for all parties involved. Westbrook Development got to showcase their commitment to affordable housing. The city administration could tout economic revitalization in an underserved neighborhood, and Harrington Ventures demonstrated its investment in community-based businesses. For Mira, it represented something far more personal, a reclamation, A rebirth, a step into territory both familiar and utterly foreign. Nervous? Alex asked, appearing at her side. He was dressed for the occasion in a charcoal suit that somehow managed to look both formal and approachable. Terrified, Mira admitted. She smoothed the front of her new camel coat, the first truly nice piece of clothing she'd bought in years, a necessary investment for her new role. Beneath it, she wore a simple but elegant dark green dress that Elena had helped her select for the event. What if I freeze up during my speech? You won't, Alex said with quiet confidence. You know exactly why you're here and what this project means. Just speak from that place and you'll be fine. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of activity incorporating the new Donovan construction, assembling a core team, finalizing contracts and project timelines. Mira had given notice at Ruby's, transitioning from Waitress to CEO in a metamorphosis that still felt like something from a dream. Tyler had been stunned when she finally told him the full story, not just about the revival of their father's company, but about her history with Alex, the true reason behind the scholarship opportunity, the deliberate destruction of James Donovan's business by Gerald Harrington. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He'd asked, hurt evident in his voice. I needed to be sure, Mira had explained. Sure that the scholarship was based on your merit, not just Alex's guilt. Sure that this opportunity for the company wasn't just some elaborate charity project. Tyler had been quiet for a long time, absorbing the implication. So my scholarship ... it wasn't really earned? It absolutely was, Mira had insisted fiercely. Alex made sure you got a fair review, but the committee was genuinely impressed with your work. You would have deserved that scholarship regardless of the circumstance. Eventually, Tyler had come around, even meeting with Alex for coffee to form his own assessment of the man whose family history was so complexly intertwined with theirs. He'd returned from that meeting thoughtful but less skeptical. He seemed sincere, Tyler had reported, and he talks about you like ... single quotes. He'd trailed off, shaking his head. Never mind, like what? Mira had pressed. Like someone who's been carrying a torch for 15 years, Tyler had said with the blunt insight of just be careful, okay? This is all happening really fast. His concern wasn't unfounded. The professional aspects of her new life were progressing with methodical efficiency, contracts signed, timelines established, responsibilities delegated. The personal aspects, particularly her evolving relationship with Alex, were far more nebulous. They had settled into a pattern of regular contact business meetings that often extended into dinner. Text exchanges that drifted from professional to personal and back again, a gradual rebuilding of connection that neither of them had explicitly defined. Mr. Harrington, Miss Donovan? A young woman from the event coordination team approached. They're ready for you at the podium. The designated area had been arranged near the section where Donovan Construction would soon begin work, a symbolic location for the ceremonial first shovel of earth. Chairs had been set up for invited guests, media positioned for optimal photos, a podium bearing both the Phoenix and Donovan Construction logos standing ready. Howard Westbrook spoke first, delivering practiced remarks about the development's importance to the city's economic growth. The mayor followed with comments about revitalization and community investment. Then it was Alex's turn. He approached the microphone with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to public speaking. When Harrington Ventures decided to invest in the Phoenix complex, we were looking for partners who understood not just construction but community. We found that partner in Donovan Construction, a company with deep roots in this city and a commitment to building home, not just housing. Mira watched him from her position near the podium, struck by the deliberate way he framed the narrative, not as a revival of a destroyed company, but as a continuation of a legacy, not as atonement, but as partnership. I'd like to introduce someone who represents the heart of this project, Alex continued, the CEO of Donovan Construction, Mira Donovan. Heart racing, Mira took her place behind the microphone, the faces looking back at her, reporters with notepads. City officials with polite interest, community members with cautious hope, momentarily blurred into an intimidating sea. Then she caught sight of Tyler in the second row, giving her a subtle thumbs up, and Alex standing to the side, his expression a perfect blend of professional respect and personal pride. Thank you, she began, her voice steadier than she'd expected. Donovan Construction was founded by my father, James Donovan, over 25 years ago. He built it on a simple principle. Everyone deserves a home they can be proud of, regardless of their income level. The words came more easily than she'd anticipated, flowing from a place of genuine conviction rather than rehearsed Polish. She spoke about growing up watching her father on job sites, about the care he took with every project, about the vision for affordable housing that prioritized dignity and quality alongside accessibility. When we lost the company, we also lost a piece of that vision for our community, allowing herself to acknowledge the past without dwelling on its painful details. Today, we're not just breaking ground on new construction. We're breaking ground on a renewed commitment to that original principle. She outlined the apprenticeship program they were establishing alongside the construction work, the local hiring initiatives, the design elements that had been developed specifically in response to community input. This isn't just about building structures, Mira concluded. It's about building foundations for homes, for careers, for a community where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. The applause that followed felt surreal, warm, genuine appreciation for words she'd spoken, ideas she'd articulated, a vision she was now empowered to pursue. As she stepped back from the podium, Alex caught her eye with a subtle nod that spoke volumes. You did it, You belong here. The ceremonial groundbreaking followed Myra, Alex, and Howard Westbrook, each taking a symbolic shovel of earth while cameras flashed. Afterward came a reception with catered food and networking opportunities, kind of professional mingling that would have been utterly foreign to Myra just 2 months earlier. She navigated it with growing confidence, discussing timeline specifics with the project manager, addressing community concerns with neighborhood representatives, answering reporters' questions about her company's approach to affordable housing. "You're a natural," Alex murmured as they finally found a moment alone, standing at the edge of the reception tent. "They're impressed. Howard's already talking about future projects." "It feels strange," Mira admitted. "Good strange, but still strange. Sometimes I wake up thinking I need to hurry for my shift at Ruby's, then remember this is my reality now." Alex smiled, understanding in his eyes. Change takes time to absorb, even positive change. Tyler said something similar when he got the scholarship, she reflected. He kept checking his student portal to make sure it was real. "How's he doing?" "Thriving," Mira said, unable to keep the pride from her voice. "He's been invited to present his sustainable urban housing design at a conference in the spring, and it looks like the Chicago internship is practically guaranteed at this point." "That's fantastic," Alex said sincerely. "You must be very proud." "I am, and nervous." He's never been that far away before. The admission slipped out before she could filter it, a glimpse of the personal vulnerability beneath her new professional exterior. Alex's expression softened. "It's a big transition for both of you," he acknowledged. "You've been a team for so long." "We still will be," Mira said quickly. "Just differently. Evolution, not separation," Alex suggested, the phrase capturing exactly what she meant. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the activity around them, the future taking shape in plans and promises in newly turned earth. "I have something for you," Alex said suddenly, reaching into his suit pocket, "a small token for today's milestone." He handed her a slim velvet box. Inside, nestled against dark fabric, lay a simple silver key on a delicate chain. "It's symbolic," Alex explained as she lifted it with questioning eyes. "Not a key to any actual door. A reminder that you've unlocked a new chapter, that some doors once closed can be reopened in unexpected ways." The gesture was thoughtful, personal, without crossing any boundaries they'd yet to define. Mira ran her finger over the intricate pattern on the key's handle, recognizing it as an architectural element, the same style that had adorned the original Donovan construction logo, which she'd revived for the new company. "It's perfect," she said, genuine emotion coloring her voice. "Thank you," saying. Their eyes met in a moment of unspoken understanding of how far they'd come from that chance encounter with a broken-down Ferrari, of how much remained unresolved between them, of possibilities neither was quite ready to name. Spring arrived in a gentle explosion of green, transforming the stark construction site into something alive with possibility. 4 months after the groundbreaking ceremony, the Phoenix residential phase was taking tangible shape, walls standing where once there had been only plans, windows being installed, the abstract promise of homes becoming concrete reality. Myra's office in the temporary construction trailer had evolved as well, from Spartan functionality to a space that reflected her emerging leadership style. Blueprints lined the walls alongside framed photographs, her father on a job site, her mother in her nursing scrubs, Tyler at his scholarship award ceremony. Visible reminders of why she was doing this, of the legacy she was both honoring and reinventing. The transition from waitress to CEO hadn't been seamless. There had been moments of doubt, of imposter syndrome so intense she'd found herself awake at 3 a.m. questioning every decision. But those moments had grown less frequent as she settled into her role, as her instincts proved sound, her vision clear, her ability to learn and adapt more robust than she'd imagined possible. She was reviewing contractor bids when her phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. "Guess who's officially Chicago-bound this summer?" The excitement practically vibrated through the screen. Myra smiled, typing back, "Congratulations." Westbrook made the smart choice. "When did you find out?" "Just got the call. Professor Linden says it's the most prestigious internship anyone from the program has landed in a decade." Pride swelled in Myra's chest, along with a bittersweet awareness of change. Tyler's achievements were taking him further into a world of his own making, exactly as it should be. The cord between them was stretching, not breaking, a distinction that had taken her time to truly embrace. Another text arrived, this one from Alex. "Meeting with City Council went well. Green space expansion approved. Are we still on for dinner tonight?" Their relationship had evolved gradually over the past months, warming from professional collaboration to something neither of them had explicitly defined, but both acknowledged was more. Dinners had started as business discussions and lingered into personal territory. Weekend walks through the Phoenix site that extended into explorations of the neighborhood. Small, meaningful gestures that spoke of care and attention. A book she'd mentioned wanting to read appearing on her desk. Coffee prepared exactly the way she liked it, waiting for her before early meeting. They were careful, both aware of the complex power dynamics at play, the history that could never be entirely erased. Alex was still a billionaire CEO, his world still fundamentally different from hers in many ways. But the gap between them had narrowed, not just because Mira's circumstances had changed, but because they were meeting each other as equals in ways that transcended financial disparities. "Yes to dinner," she typed back. 7:30 at Giovanni's. "Perfect." I have something to show you afterward, if you're up for a small adventure. The cryptic addition piqued her curiosity, but before she could respond, Elena Vasquez appeared at her office door, sample boards in hand. Got a minute to go over the finishes for the model unit? The architect asked. The sustainable bamboo flooring came in, and I think you're gonna love the way it works with the recycled tile we selected for the kitchen. The remainder of the day disappeared into these practical details, the specific elements that would transform empty structures into homes. By the time Myra left to change for dinner, she had nearly forgotten Alex's mysterious invitation. Giovanni's had become something of a regular spot for them, upscale enough to feel special, but unpretentious enough that Mira felt comfortable there. The owner, an Italian immigrant who had built the restaurant from nothing 30 years earlier, had taken a liking to them, often setting aside the corner booth with the best view of the garden. Alex was already waiting when she arrived, rising to greet her with a warm smile. "You look beautiful," he said simply. She did feel good in her emerald wrap dress, another addition to her gradually expanding wardrobe, selected with growing confidence in her own taste rather than anxiety about fitting into a world that wasn't hers. "Thank you," she replied, settling across from him. "So does whatever Giovanni is cooking. It smells amazing in here." Single quotes. Dinner progressed with comfortable familiarity, excellent food, easy conversation that ranged from project updates to Tyler's internship news to a book they'd both been reading. It was only as they lingered over espresso that Alex circled back to his earlier message. "About that adventure I mentioned," he began, a hint of nervousness in his expression. "It's a bit of a surprise. Are you game? Should I be concerned that you look like you're about to suggest skydiving?" Mira teased. He laughed, relaxing slightly. "Nothing quite that dramatic. Just something I've been working on. Something I hope you'll like." 20 minutes later, they were driving through a familiar neighborhood, the same streets where Mira had first encountered Alex with his broken-down Ferrari. As they approached the exact corner where that chance meeting had occurred, he slowed the car, then pulled to a stop. "This is where everything changed," he said quietly. "For both of us." Mira glanced around, memories washing over her. The incredulous recognition, the anger and confusion, the reluctant coffee offered to a stranded billionaire who turned out to be a ghost from her past. "It seems like a lifetime ago," she murmured. 4 months, 2 weeks, 3 days, Alex said with precise recall that made her smile. "But yes, a lifetime in many ways." He drove on, turning onto a street Mira knew well, the street where she and Tyler had lived in their small apartment. But instead of continuing to the modest building they'd called home, he pulled up in front of a vacant lot where a dilapidated duplex had once stood. "What are we doing here?" Mira asked, puzzled. "Come see," Alex replied, a mixture of eagerness and apprehension in his voice. They got out of the car and Alex led her to the edge of the lot, which had been recently cleared and leveled. A simple sign stood at its boundary, "Future home of the Donovan Holloway Center for Community Development." Mira stared at the sign, then at Alex, comprehension slowly dawning. "What is this?" "A project I've been developing separately from Phoenix," he explained. "A neighborhood resource center that would provide construction training, small business support, affordable childcare, and community meeting space." He reached into his jacket and withdrew a slim folder containing preliminary architectural renderings. The proposed building was beautiful, modern, yet welcoming, designed to complement rather than overshadow the existing neighborhood structures. "The Donovan Holloway Center?" Mira repeated, her throat tightening at the names side by side, her father's family name paired with her mother's maiden name that she had adopted professionally during those difficult years. "I wanted to honor both parts of your journey," Alex said softly, "where you came from and who you became to survive." Mira traced the rendering with trembling fingers. "This is ... I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything yet," he assured her. "It's still just a concept. I wanted your input before moving forward. If you hate the idea, or if you'd rather it be called something else or located somewhere else, it's perfect," she interrupted, emotion making her voice unsteady. "The concept, the name, the location, all of it." Relief washed over his features. "I hoped you'd feel that way. The Harrington Foundation would provide initial funding, but it would operate as an independent nonprofit. I thought, maybe you and Tyler might want to sit on the board, help shape its direction." The thoughtfulness behind the gesture struck Mira deeply. This wasn't just another grand gesture from a wealthy man trying to impress her. It was a carefully considered attempt to address the systemic issues that had shaped her life: lack of opportunity, barriers to economic mobility, the challenges faced by working families in underserved neighborhoods. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked, the question emerging from some vulnerable place she usually kept carefully guarded. Alex was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "Because meeting you again that day," he nodded toward the corner where his Ferrari had broken down, "made me realize how much I'd missed by following the path of least resistance for so long, how much I'd compromised to avoid conflict with my father, even after his death." He turned to face her directly, his expression open and unguarded. "You reminded me of who I wanted to be before life got complicated. Before I accepted that some wrongs couldn't be righted. You never did that, accept injustice as inevitable. Even when you had every reason to give up, you kept fighting for Tyler, for yourself, for a better future." The sincerity in his voice made something shift in Myra's chest, a final piece of her protective armor giving way. "We've come a long way from that corner," she said softly. "We have," he agreed, "and I'd like to keep going if you're willing. Not just professionally, not just as friends, but ... single quotes. He hesitated, then finished simply, together. The word hung in the air between them, a question, an invitation, possibility neither had explicitly acknowledged until this moment. Mira took a deep breath, letting herself fully consider what he was offering. Not a rescue or a fairy tale ending, but partnership. Not erasing the past, but building something new alongside it. "I'd like that," she said finally, the words feeling both monumental and entirely natural. Together, Alex reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture that bridged their separate worlds more completely than grand gestures or elaborate promises ever could. In that moment of connection, standing before the empty lot that represented possibility rather than loss, Mira felt the final pieces of a long incomplete puzzle sliding into place. The past would always be part of their story, the privileged son and the waitress, whose lives had been altered by forces beyond their control, but it was no longer the whole story. What mattered more was what they were choosing to build now, stone by stone, day by day, a foundation strong enough to weather whatever came next, together.